Cineverm. Hello and welcome to Cineverm, a weekly podcast discussing films in and out of the cinema. My name is Anthony Renteria.
I am David.
And this week is a very special week as we are celebrating 50 episodes of Cineverm with this episode 50. So we thought it would be cool to talk about our Canon list, other things that, that might just come up mid-topic or conversation about the podcast or how it's been podcasting or creating and just doing the whole thing. So we're just really grateful for anyone who's been following along and all the listeners. It's been a great time of film watching for the most part.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, so I guess I just wanted to start with I want to give some like backstory on the podcast. So like because I think, you came on board on episode 26 and I feel like in a lot of ways you're kind of responsible for Cineverm coming back because I had left it on hiatus in like 2019 and then we struck up a friendship and we were talking and I'm pretty sure, I'm like 100% sure that it was you who came up with the idea of, restarting the podcast after we talked about a film. I can't remember which film, but I guess I just wanted to ask, like, what...
Man, I wish I could remember what we were talking about, yeah.
Yeah, I just remember, I think it might have been, I'm thinking of ending things. Like, it wasn't right after we watched it, but it was like when you left to move up north, for some reason, I think we talked... Oh, no, it was another round that I think I brought up to you. I don't know. We talked about a lot of movies. The one that I really remember is that we were both kind of talking smack about Nomadland because we were kind of disappointed by it.
Yes. Yeah. I remember us ranting about that.
Yeah.
And then I don't even remember at what point you told me that you had a podcast, a film podcast, and you just paused it. And I was just like, oh man, that would be fun to do that.
Yeah, man. So I guess now 25 episodes in, what do you think about the whole podcasting thing and how's it been going?
Well, the big thing is like, it's just, I feel like it's made me appreciate movies a lot more. It's kind of like reignited my, like how I watch movies.
Yeah. Cause
every movie that I watch, I'm like evaluating it as if we were going to talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. It just brings like a whole nother level of the viewing experience, because if you're just watch, I don't know, if you just watch a bunch of movies and you're just not thinking about them as if you're going to like have to defend it to someone, or like explain it to someone.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just different. It adds another level of enjoyment when you're watching a movie.
Yeah. It really like, because I guess what you're kind of saying is how I imagine, the majority of people who, they consume content, it's like they turn on Netflix and it's just, it's the equivalent of going on YouTube and watching, 50 videos, I feel like film watching, especially now with a lot of the streaming stuff, and it's just, no one's really choosing anything, and then you're never giving yourself enough time to think about the thing and when you're moving on to the next thing. And I think I feel the same way. Like I feel really grateful to like be able to like pause and reflect, even if it's like a film or even like anything else. Like even if we're not doing an episode on it, I enjoy that moment of reflection. Even if it's like a bad movie, I enjoy thinking and like finalizing my thought and like, oh, that's why it was bad. Like I knew it was bad watching it, but now that I can think about it and be like, oh, it was the writing, it was this performance, the story, so.
And especially talking about it for some reason just really helps, it's like, or writing about it, I guess, because it's just like you're putting your thoughts on paper and it makes your thoughts make sense.
Yeah.
And then just comparing movies, like just like we do and like we're going to do in this episode, I assume. It's like that helps a lot. Just kind of in your mind, you're kind of creating like a picture of the whole world of cinema, and putting it together like a puzzle.
Yeah. And talking about like writing and stuff. One thing that I love that I missed a lot, when I was on hiatus with the podcast is like, before I never felt like a sense of finality. Like I would watch something, even if I liked it or disliked it, I'd be like, man, I feel like I have something to say about it, and I have no one to tell. And
Yeah.
then like now having the podcast, like when we finish an episode on a movie, or I write a review, and that we post on the website,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I can like release, like not that I don't have to think about that anymore, but like it's not in the back of my head anymore. Do you feel
Yeah.
that like sometimes you watch something, it's like, God, I need like, why is it not leaving me alone? I need to like write something about this.
Yeah. Maybe not writing, but I like even just a podcast episode. I feel like
Yeah.
helps me just like, or I don't know, even just giving it a rating for some reason, like, which if you're doing it for yourself, it's kind of silly or it feels silly, but if you're like doing it for something else, like it kind of adds an extra purpose to it. So
Yeah.
it's kind of cool to take it seriously,
Yeah.
and evaluate it.
Now, has there been any like negatives that you felt from, doing a podcast?
Not really,
No.
to be honest. Have you?
No, I mean, there's obviously like just the normal, adding another thing to your life, but I think that's
Well,
just
yeah.
because life is chaotic. But
Yeah.
I was trying to think like viewing wise. I think I do like I'd like to say like I don't think about my rating while I watch a movie, but I think subconsciously I totally am. Like I
Yeah.
watched I guess this is it's not a spoiler, but I watched Belfast for like one of my videos for my YouTube channel,
Yeah.
Lonely Critic, because that was the film that came out this weekend, and I wanted to
the
watch
black and white. What? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I saw the trailer for that.
Yeah, and like I'm pretty in tune with like the Oscar race and with just movie culture because I try to like keep up with like what films to watch, especially like the indie stuff and the foreign film stuff. Like if you're
Mhm.
not paying it, like I feel like a lot of those films get attention because of the Oscar race, so it's like I have to pay attention to it to find certain types of films that I like. Like Titan was one that I feel like I only discovered it because a lot of people were like, "Man, what if this were to get nominated? This would be crazy."
Mhm.
But this film, Belfast, oh my God. So it's like every single like Oscar predictors, like this is the best picture material and it's like, the best film of the year, blah, 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 blah. In I was originally going to watch Wes Anderson's The
Yeah.
French Dispatch, and I got off work too late and I couldn't make the screening. So I settled for Belfast, and that movie was awful. Like it was the most generic Oscar bait garbage.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not garbage, it's I mean, it's a bad film, but it's not garbage. But like I just felt so like frustrated because I was like, man, it is gonna win. Like, and it feels like a movie you're watching
You
it,
think
and
so?
it's just like, oh, yep, there's the Oscar scene where someone's crying. There's the
Uh-huh.
scene where slow motion dancing, and then the black and white. Like all I could think about was Roma, and I was like,
Yeah.
wow, this is the worst version of a Roma that anyone could have ever made. And,
Oh my God.
and it's like, of course it's gonna win. It reminds me of like how Green Book won Best Picture that year.
Oh God.
When-
yeah.
and it's
I'm
like-
never gonna see it. I'm never ever gonna see that movie. Never ever
Yeah.
gonna watch that movie. I can confidently say.
I mean, it's like what was the year Saving Private Ryan was nominated? I think it was like something Shakespeare in Love or some stupid
Oh yeah.
Weinstein
yeah.
movie. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh my God, they get it wrong every time. And it's just like,
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. The Oscars means next to nothing to me almost. Besides what you were saying, that it kind of like makes you notice movies maybe that you wouldn't notice. But
Yeah, it is.
I don't know. I feel like now that
discovery
we're
platform.
yeah, I guess so. But now that if you're paying attention to if you're actively like searching out new releases and stuff,
You could find.
I
them.
feel like
Yeah.
it's kind of totally unnecessary if you think about it. But
Yeah. I do think
know.
the most valuable thing to come from the Oscar stuff is the snub list that a lot of people put up, because then those are usually the good ones. People are like, oh
those
my
are the
God.
better ones. Yeah.
Yeah, like this wasn't even nominated. What the hell? And then you're like, so yeah, if you ever want to find the good films, that'd be a smart way to do it, just find all the
That's true.
snub lists.
Reverse psychology. Mhm. Yeah.
But speaking about awards and Oscars and, awarding the best films of all time. I guess this could be a good transition into our canon, which we mentioned in I think it was our Cineverm Revolution episode. But for anyone who hasn't heard that, essentially we came up with this idea to have like a list of films that we think uh, basically represent the best of cinema as an art form and as a medium.
Yeah.
And it's like a list that, or a resource that someone could go to and like, all right, what is film actually about? I'm watching Netflix content, but what is an actual film? And then this list, you could look at it and watch these films, and then over time or slowly by listening to our discussions on it or other people's conversations, you could start seeing, oh, okay, I get what cinema can do and what the art of the medium is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to make like a list of like, I think I mentioned this in the Reloaded or Revolutions episode, but yeah, like if I could go back in time and, my whenever I started watching movies, like seriously, when I was like 16 or 17 or something, and like make a better list than the AFI top 100, which I think, which was the one I was going through. Cause there are a lot that it's just like, I think, like there's a culture of like film criticism that I feel like there's a lot of movies on there that are just there because they've previously been declared as canon.
Yeah.
And so if enough people say it, then, it is. And it's kind of like when you find the movies on Rotten Tomatoes that have an 100% and you're like, I've never heard of this movie. No one's ever heard of this movie. You watch the movie and you're just like, this is just crap. Like, what is this? But it has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes,
Yeah.
So it's like, I want to make a better version of that like is more like just trying to capture. I think my goal with it is trying to hit all the major points of movies, of cinema, like all the major genres, all the major directors, like, and just hitting all those, just one of each is kind of how I'm thinking of it, even though it's not like my list has multiple of like directors and stuff, but like ideally it would be as minimal as possible, like as little repeats as possible. And then it would eliminate, like mine doesn't include a lot that are on like the AFI top 100 that are just like, well, this was significant for its time, like in the 40s, maybe it was like a big deal, or the 50s, but it doesn't stand the test of time. Like without any context, when a person watches it now, it doesn't mean anything to them. So I tried to eliminate some of those from my list. Yeah.
And that's one thing that I think I'm very focused on is, like, is this film kind of timeless? Like how you're saying, like without context, and how does it hold up? There's a lot of films you can watch and then it requires someone telling you why it's great. Right? I think what we both have in common that we want in the list is like any person can watch this film and then think, I get something. And like, maybe you have to like dig a little deeper to learn, but it will still be an enjoyable experience as a film, period,
I still think, I might be a little more, don't know what the word is, like different from you a little bit. Cause it's kind of like I think ideally it would be like, we would figure out what order people would watch the movies in, that they would start maybe with like the more accessible ones and then like work their way through like a curriculum, and then get to the ones that wouldn't make sense if they didn't have any of the background of watching the other movies. But now that they've seen these movies, it's really hard. I was like thinking about it, like what would be the best method, even if you just took someone who didn't like let's say they'd only watched just whatever blockbusters and that's it. They've always watched that. They don't really have an idea of like what all cinema can do, and like how would you start them? Because there would be certain ones that you would want them to see, but if you gave them that first, you know, it'd be like they would just think, wow, this is stupid. And I don't get anything out of this. But it's only because, it's like kind of like anything, like appreciating wine or like appreciating opera or something. Like, it does help to like know a lot of context and background, but you have to ease your way into it, I guess.
That's interesting. I have never really thought about that, but I think just now thinking about it, I think honestly, I think because I remember feeling those same sentiments as I assume many have felt in school in the U.S. When you start learning literature, it's like immediately
Mm-hmm.
Shakespeare, bam.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like I don't even know how to read yet, and
Yeah.
and then it requires so much that there's those books that you buy that have like the translated more
Mm-hmm.
dumbed down version, and
Yeah.
I've always thought, like, why don't we start with stuff that's modern, that is,
Right.
challenging a little bit, and then, work your way back. Which makes me think, like, I think, at least for me, how I grew to love cinema, it was the modern things that did something unique to where I'm like, wait, there's more to this medium than just, big blockbuster action flicks and,
Yeah.
cheesy rom-coms. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that made me investigate, like, because I think we have, some filmmakers in our modern time that do things that are challenging to the form, to where it's like, where did they get that from? And then that's maybe where you could tie it back. Maybe the best option would be like almost double billing all the films,
Yeah.
where
Oh,
it's
that's a
like,
good idea.
you could do, here's the modern version that's a more digestible, and it still is, a Canon film. And then here's the version that you can kind of tell, it was like an inspiration or like a thematic inspiration. And this one is extremely challenging. Like I think, one of mine on my list is First Reformed, and I just
Uh-huh.
assume, I think it was Bresson is who he's
Yeah.
influenced
Yeah.
by. So like I think that would be a great double bill with Bresson if that there was one of his on the list, and maybe that would be cool to
Yes.
like. And it doesn't have to be just two; it could be like little clusters. Like this is this little genre, and then
Oh,
maybe we could
yeah.
say like, all right, this is entry,
Oh
intermediate.
my God. And see,
Oh,
that actually answers one of my questions. One of the things I was thinking about with like Canon is like, how do you uh differentiate genres, because it's like, yeah, like you can't say that, or I don't know about your opinion on this, but like it's real sometimes when you're just talking about the great films, it's
hmm
hard to like say this movie is better than this movie if they're completely different genres. So
yeah,
it's kind of like it makes more sense to like cluster them up, like you're saying, with the
yeah,
same genre. And you could, I mean, honestly, like the best, I don't know, I think the best way, if you have the patience and what, like if you're just committed, the best way would be to start like in chronological order and just watch all the old one, from old to
yeah,
new. Just because like I well, I guess I didn't do that. I just followed the AFI, but I feel like it's so cool when you're watching a new movie and you're just like, oh, that's from this, like that's from
yeah,
this, like that's oh cool, like that's a reference to this. But like if you watch it, you know what I'm saying, like if you watch it from new to old, then you
yeah.
don't have all that. You'd have to, I don't know. That's the only thing that I'm thinking, like the benefit of watching the old ones first and like knowing, because then you get to see all the references,
Oh yeah.
and homages and all that stuff. That's kind of fun too. But hey,
Wow.
if we just presented it in a grouping of like, hey,
hmm
this is like a track you could take,
Yeah.
like a fun track of great films, and so you could do it either way if whatever you prefer. You could start from the beginning and work your way to modern times, or you could start with the newest one and work your way backwards in
Yeah.
whatever track you're in.
What if we, did the clusters, and then we have multiple tracks? We have a look, if you just like blockbuster films and you're kind of just wanting to play around and see if you could get into the deeper stuff, like here's that track. And it goes more
Oh my god.
accessible to difficult. And then we have another track that is like, this is the true cinephile track, where you will begin with the film. Like let's say we have a cluster that's horror, and let's
Yeah,
say
the
The
Cabinet of
Exorcist.
Dr. Caligari. That's what
Yeah,
I would start with.
yes, like a super classic older film, and that's that's base one, and that's based more on, this is what inspired everything after it, and then you're working
Yeah.
your way down from masterpiece to masterpiece in that way, and then that's the cinephile track, you know.
But I think also the challenge is that every individual film, I think, it needs to be great. Like I feel like it'd be tempting to like throw some in there that are just to fill in the blanks of like a track.
hmm
But if you've just watched that movie, you'd be like, oh, this isn't that great a movie. I don't know. I'm trying to think of how to do that, but
Oh, you're saying because
Ugh.
it would be lesser after you watch the.
No, I'm just thinking like, let's say you picked a genre like a Western or something.
Yeah.
And like, in my opinion, there's a very small number of like great Western movies.
Yeah.
But if you were making like a track, you would be tempted to like throw in some mediocre Westerns in there that were maybe significant for their time, but aren't that great.
Well,
Just to make it feel like a complete track. But I don't know.
yeah.
I'm thinking what it would be is like you would have the entire canon, like all just individual movies. I'm trying to think how it would be displayed, like on our website or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And then you would have filters, like you would have like different tracks. You click on, okay, the horror track.
Mm-hmm.
And the movies would sort themselves and filter themselves out to be in the order that you should watch them in. So then you could go back to all, and then you could just see all the movies in the canon. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think the canon should self-eliminate the filler stuff. Maybe what we could do is have like a sideline that is our favorites, like our personal favorites that aren't that we never agreed were canon, but these are like, look, if you want, this is like extra material. This is like just study homework.
Extracurricular.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the fun stuff on the side.
Extra credit. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, man. We should just start a fucking film program.
Yeah. Let's just start at college.
I feel like we've given more thought into this than a lot of film programs have.
There's so many fun. You've got me thinking about how I'm actually gonna like set it up visually. Like that'll be fun to set up all these different tracks and and then I am even thinking of just like setting it up, whatever our canons are, even if we don't have episodes on all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Just set them up and somehow like differentiate. Like it would be obvious which ones we had done an episode on and which ones we hadn't. So you could click through to the ones that we'd done a review on or an episode, but they would still all be there. I don't know.
Oh yeah. I guess that is something we haven't really decided. So like all the films that we're recommending here, are they going to go like, I guess that'd be one way. Like, should we make this kind of like a temporary list?
That's what I just realized, but it's like if there's ones that both of us haven't watched yet, then I guess we wouldn't put them on there.
Yeah. This would have to be something either you've watched or I've watched, and then if we both watched it, we can. Well, I mean, because I guess I would want to rewatch a lot. So what if we just do this as a temporary list?
Yeah,
that we are both submitting, and then we can create these little subtracks by ourselves or put them on the site. And then we're just gonna plow through these,
right?
And then make them, like they're certified. Like maybe they're
certified.
Yeah, these are
certified gold.
Yeah, these are pending. These are pending submissions, but they're there, and they've at least merited one of our opinions.
Yeah, I mean, I told you like I've got like right now I've got 112 that are in my canon, but then I've got like. I think like, let me see. I've got almost 300 more that I just put a question mark on. Like, wow. I don't really know. Like, this might be canon, but I would need to like rewatch it or like think about it more to decide if it's canon or not.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot that are like, even for me, like that are undecided. So
that is impressive.
But I mean, we don't have to bother with all those, but just,
those would make good. I mean, after we hit all these big ones, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh man. So how do you want to start this? Do you want to just?
Since you say your list is smaller, so like I'm curious. We can start with yours.
Okay.
And then I could see. I'm really curious, like how many of yours are on my list, and then I don't know.
Yeah.
And so, I could mention the ones that I feel like I just really have to mention that are on my list.
Yeah, so mine are all modern. I mean, if you've listened to a few of our episodes, then you might have gotten a hint that I am pretty new to the whole cinephile life, I think. Like, I didn't have my
cinephile lifestyle.
Yeah, I didn't have my awakening until Drive, which I think was in the 2000s or something, And I have mainly focused on, like, watching, like, keeping up with cinema. Because if I start going back... I've told you about this, but like I have like this weird like OCD, like I have to watch everything in chronological order, and that's for some reason has always been like a block for me. And this podcast has been the only thing that's like let me break that. You know, like if it's a film that we're gonna watch for an episode, I can like remove the anxious pressure of having to see it in order, or I mean, it's crazy. I mean, the thing I was doing before we started Cineverm, the last like way to revisit older films that I was doing was, I was like, all right, I'm gonna start from the year that I was born, 1993, and I'm gonna watch every film from 1993 to now, and I was gonna watch it in the order of release date.
Oh my god!
And I got to like, I think I got to like February. And it's actually like kind of hard finding release dates for films, older films, and then like older foreign films.
Yeah.
It was a whole mess. I ended up only watching like 30, 40 films, but
you're creating a nightmare for yourself.
Yeah, but
God.
I'm excited now because if all year film submissions, if I can just plow through all those, then I think I will have a decent education. Because right now I am like a normal. I feel like the majority of listeners will know all the films I'm recommending, and then they will have probably watched them. So mine is going to be a very, I don't know. I think a lot of these films, maybe, to me, they're canon because I haven't experienced what you've experienced. So it's going to be interesting. All right. So let's see. I'll start with, let's see. I have like 20 films.
Okay.
I'm trying to think which way do I start. I'll just start from the very top. My favorite film ever. I think I've told you. I think I've said it on the podcast, but it is Spike Jonze' Her, and
yes.
I think it deserves to be on the canon for multiple reasons. I think it's a beautiful film. Cinematography, the score is, oh my god, the score has never been released on any streaming platforms, but it came out like 4 months ago. Like, out of the blue, no one said anything, and I just discovered it, and I've been listening to it on repeat, and it is one of the most beautiful scores of all time. But I think what the film talks about thematically and emotionally about relationships, but then also AI, I think it is like one of the rare sci-fi movies that isn't concerned with the sci-fi element. It's like the sci-fi-ness is truly a metaphor for relationships, with the AI component of love and humanity and all that stuff. So
yeah.
For that reason, I mean, it's my favorite film. So I have to submit it. You've seen the film, right?
Yeah. This is what's weird. I put a question mark on that one,
Mm-hmm.
but subjectively, I mean, when I rated it or watched it last, I gave it a 10 out of 10. So I don't know what my confusion is on that one, but I guess I just have to watch it again.
Yeah.
Because I haven't watched it in a while. So, I mean, I gave it a 10 out of 10. So, I mean, obviously I remember really liking it. But for some reason, I'm thinking like, what, like, because I'm thinking about uniqueness, and you gave a pretty good argument. So I think I would just have to watch it again and think about it.
Okay.
What's the other one that I'm thinking about? What's the other A24 AI movie that came out? You know what I'm talking about.
With Ex Machina.
Shit. Yeah, Ex Machina.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Ex Machina. And
you would put that above Her.
See, but what's weird is like in my brain, maybe because I saw Ex Machina more recently,
mm-hmm.
I say that, but then I look at my list and I see Ex Machina is a 9 out of 10 for me. But it's also a question mark for canon. So I think I'm going to have to decide on those two. Like, yeah. Because I think they're very similar, like, in certain way, like same themes, and sort of same. I mean, they came out a year apart from each other, and so I'll have to think. Those might be some that we need to watch, you know, and like, okay, are both of them canon? Is just one of those canon? I don't know. Yeah.
So what are we gonna do? Are we gonna have we gonna have like a maybe pile that we're gonna?
We should, yeah. We should have a maybe pile. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, the ones that are in your canon, like we should just watch those, like, so that we can decide.
Okay. All right. and just for us, because we have a Google Doc, I'm gonna put 2 asterisks for the maybes.
Okay.
But one final thing I'll say.
I mean,
about,
I gave it a 10 out of 10 when I saw it last, so there's probably a pretty high chance that I
yeah,
just, for some reason, it doesn't like scream at me that it's canon for some reason. I don't know.
I get that. There's a couple favorites I have that I feel the same way. Like that I gave a 10 out of 10, but it's like I don't know. But I think my main argument for it is how perfect of a romantic film it is. Like I feel like few
Yeah.
films are like, most films that I think will probably enter the canon are drama focused. And like it is, to me, like if you were to eliminate all the sci-fi stuff, like this is just a clean cut romance, and it's just amazing that it can capture, you know, the human relationship with such a weird metaphor. And then
And with
like
only a voice. Yeah.
oh my god. And then like that's the thing, like I mean, I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember when I rewatched it for like the 5th time, it was like staggering how well executed it was. Like on a visual standpoint, it is like
Yeah, visually.
surprisingly
Yeah.
just gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
And how it plays with the form, like with the voice. There's a I just remember the love scene, like one of the first sex scenes in the film. It plays on a black screen, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's cinema. Like you're playing with the form, you're playing with how someone is experiencing this. It's like when a writer, kind of breaks form in a novel, and
Mhm.
it kind of shows like what you can do by breaking rules. And I think the film has many moments of that that are just really nice. But let's move on to the next one because we have a lot to
Okay.
cover.
All right.
All right, so the next one is Children of Men. Again, this was a film that I discovered early in my little cinephile life. It was my first experience with Alfonso Cuarón, uh, and I just think it is I think it just describes a lot of like society, like human society in the art form of film. I recently read Watchmen, and it's like a very apocalyptic take on humanity, and I think Children of Men does very similar things with a very interesting lens into it, and the way it's filmed and like crafted. I feel like it's one of those films that had that docu style that wasn't, like it's all gonna be handheld, or it's all gonna be, you know, uh, like a, like a Blair Witch type thing. Like it doesn't stick to a certain cliche for a cliche sake, but it
Mhm.
feels like those things. Like it feels real, and it's just using little moments of that. There's like extended one take scenes where it's all handheld, but the whole film isn't all handheld. So it's just using it to like splice in the emotion. And I think just the idea and the themes that it tackles, I mean, are so relevant even to today, with the society collapse, with the environmental issues, with the hate crimes and the immigration stuff. I mean, it covers so much. Like it is.
Mm.
I was like reading back the synopsis and like looking at scenes on YouTube, and I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, like this feels like something you would have made today, and it's just so crazy. And I don't know. So that's one that I'd recommend. Have you seen it?
Yeah. I need to rewatch it because again, that's one I put a question mark on, and
Mhm.
so I haven't seen it probably since like 2009 or something. So
Yeah.
it's been a long time. So that could be that's another one we need to watch at some point for sure. Because I think we should put. I just realized I was looking through my list that I don't have an Alfonso Cuarón film that I didn't put any in my canon. So that could be one. How would you like if you had to pick one? Would you put Roma or Children of Men?
Children of
in?
Men.
Okay. Okay.
In a heartbeat. Children of Men is like, and it is. Oh my god, it's a beautiful film. I don't know. I think yeah, definitely Children of Men. I think it's just it's so like it's an exciting movie too. Like
Yeah.
it just hits all the markers. Where I think Roma is cool, and it probably deserves more to be on the list more. I think there's another film called like Persona or something that people say is kind of like Roma. But I think Roma, especially just having seen Belfast and like hearing about all the new films that are about filmmakers' life, like the autobiographical film, I mean, I'm sure it was a thing before. Maybe you can correct me since you have a deeper history of film. But I think this Roma film really started a zeitgeist of filmmakers thinking, my life is interesting. Let me shoot it in black and white and make a movie about it. And I don't think everyone. I mean, I think everyone's life is interesting enough for that, but I think you should do something unique. You know, like, and I think it's just
Yeah,
there's a lot of copycats. Is what I think I'm trying to
definitely.
say. Yeah.
Have you seen Y Tu Mama Tambien?
No. See, I've heard
Oh man,
that is really amazing.
it's a
too.
good one too.
Yeah.
I'm almost like both of those are that and Children of Men. I have it 8 out of 10. So I'm like, man,
Yeah.
I wonder which one I would choose. But Children of Men is it's more of a, you could tell that they put a lot of work into that movie. So
Yeah.
I would have to rewatch it.
I mean, I'd argue
sure.
Children of Men is probably one of the best post-apocalyptic films I've ever seen. Like, I would put it above Blade Runner, 2049.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Seriously? Okay. See, that's where I'm like, no. Yeah. Like that's where maybe that's my thing is like, I'm thinking, okay, I'm trying to think like, but I can't, it's hard off the top of my head to think of all the post-apocalyptic kind of movies that I've seen. But yeah, I'm thinking like,
I think your opinion will change when you rewatch it though, because it has so much depth. Like, it is insane to where like it feels lived in, just like Blade Runner 2049. But I think what it does differently than Blade Runner 2049 is it doesn't have the plot errors in the middle of it.
Oh man,
but yeah,
we're gonna have to rewatch it.
All right, so that's a maybe. I'm gonna go ahead and put Roma. That's another film I had on this list as a maybe. But what were your thoughts on that?
On Roma, I mean, for some reason, it's. I guess when I saw it, I don't know why, I gave it a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
But like, it was a solid movie, very interesting, but it didn't like have anything extra that I like really wanted.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I'm thinking like, okay, does it like define a genre? Does it
the autobiographical?
Is it even autobiography? Yeah. I don't know. I'd have to think about that one as that genre.
Okay, so I'll put that in the maybe, and then all right, this one has to be on here.
Okay.
This is probably my most rewatched film in my life. I've probably seen this film at least 30 times, and that is not like an exaggeration. Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Yeah. Okay. I was. That's also a question mark for mine. Mm-hmm. And it's because I want to put an Edgar Wright movie, obviously, in canon.
That is his best film.
I went with Shaun of the Dead for some reason.
Oh.
Just thinking like, I don't know. That's his more, like, because he had that trilogy, which you know more about Edgar Wright than me, but like whatever that trilogy is called, the
Cornetto trilogy.
Yes. And so that's kind of his like defining work, I feel like. And Shaun of the Dead wasn't it the first in that trilogy, maybe? And it's an interest just for like, if you were going to put a parody movie into the canon, I feel like that's a really good submission for that genre.
Oh yeah.
Parody films. So that's why I think that's why I put it. But like, I think I like, just subjectively, I think I like Scott Pilgrim versus the World better than Shaun of the Dead.
Well, here's my argument for Scott Pilgrim. I think it is like truly one of the best adapted works into film, because it feels like a comic, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't do the thing all comic.
God.
Like if you were to, when people say like it feels like a comic, and then you see the movie and like you can tell they're just imitating panels. But this feels like a purely cinematic work. The editing of this film is bar none. Some of the it's all played for comedic effect and for fun and for gaffes. But the amount of technicality of the craft, I think, is where it surpasses. And it's like, like this is an issue that all comedy films have issues with being remembered as greats, because it's just too light. It's too fun. But I think even if you were to just subjectively look at the actual craft of Scott Pilgrim, like there are scenes that are there's like a scene at the party where it's like one of the girls is talking to Scott. It's like, wait, you're talking to who? And then all the lights start to dim, and it's like like the entire craft of the film
Oh yeah.
is like intertwined with the character. And I don't think I've ever seen another film where lights are dimming and they explode when a character has a realization, or like shots snap into the next shot with surprise that a character is having, or montages that feel like you're inside a character's mind. So I think like in a craft way, like it is kind of like an interesting expression of a young male mind who is struggling with the situation.
It's definitely like the best it's a great like cartoon movie. Like, you know what I mean? Like like a movies in the style, like if you're going to try to turn a comic / cartoon into a movie, like it's probably the best example, like you're saying technically.
Yeah.
So man, I'm telling, like it probably wouldn't be hard to convince me to put it in the canon. I was just thinking like from a minimalist perspective, I was thinking like, okay, Edgar Wright, obviously I'm going to put something in the canon. Like is Shaun of the Dead, was it more groundbreaking for the time, or is it just that, I don't know. I haven't seen Shaun of the Dead in a while, but I've seen Scott Pilgrim several times. So maybe that's why.
Yeah.
I just haven't seen it in a while, but I don't know.
I think Scott Pilgrim is groundbreaking. Like when someone plays with light, I think about Scott Pilgrim. When someone does a cut, with the camera panning to the left, and then that harsh movement cuts to another shot that is snapping to the left, like it just feels. And then like the amount of match cuts, the amount of like visual gags, or
it's the amount. It's just it's how it's just so like the entire movie, like every scene is so every second has something in it like that, some kind of editing extra.
And it's all craft. And I think in the same way, I haven't seen Citizen Kane, but in the same way, everyone talks about Citizen Kane, how it is purely like
it's like that for cinematography.
Yeah, everything feels in tune with the character, and like how everyone talks about the depth of the shots in Citizen Kane. I feel like this film is doing that, but with editing. Like even if you were to not like the film, I think anyone who is interested in the editing of filmmaking would be like, that was a massive undertaking of insane energy.
I literally probably just have to rewatch Shaun of the Dead to like either realize it's not as good as Scott Pilgrim, or like or just, I don't know, have an epiphany and be like, oh my god, it's way better or something. Like it's his best film. But I mean, I guess why not both? I don't know.
Well, okay, so I'll put Scott Pilgrim in the maybe. So I think Scott Pilgrim is his best film, but of the Cornetto trilogy, and in a lot of ways, I think this is actually, I think that Scott Pilgrim is his best film, but I think my favorite Edgar Wright film is actually The World's End, and I think that's what I would actually submit if from the three films, because I think it captures a certain emotion that I feel that Edgar Wright has never captured, besides in that film. With the way like you've seen The World's End, right? Yeah. So I think it has the same energy as Shaun of the Dead, with the robots and all that stuff. But I think what it captures is like the emotion of an older man trying to reclaim his youth by forcing his friends to do this like pub run, and the statements it has about like alcoholism towards the end, and like you kind of get hints of like depression and like it's just like an obsession with the past. And I think all of Edgar Wright's films, and I think in a lot of ways, I think The World Ends is like very representative of our nostalgia age. I think right now the majority of films that are made are filled with references and like Easter eggs and like callbacks to all types of pop culture. And I think The World's End does it with emotion, where Shaun of the Dead is more just for humor. I think The World End is doing the same thing, but it makes it more emotional when you realize that the central character is a wreck because of it, because he can't move on. He doesn't want to become old. Like he has this memorabilia, nostalgia for the past, because he doesn't like who he is or what's going to happen to him in his life. So I would submit that one. What did you think about The World's End?
I remember liking it, but I don't know. I think for some reason, for me, it's like you have a director like Edgar Wright, and you kind of know what his strengths are. You know, like his strength, his things are is like he's really great at. I mean, he's really good at comedy, and he's really good at like editing, I guess. Even though he's not the editor of his films, but it's like he designs his films to like be really smart, like with the editing. And I feel like I don't know. I just kind of discount the other stuff, I guess. Like you know, I'm never gonna say like Edgar Wright is like whatever. Like his strength is like, you know, the emotions. Even though if he does that well in a movie, I don't know. When I'm thinking about Canon, I'm thinking about like what is he the strongest at?
Yeah,
and like what movie would I like want to show someone to be like, yeah, this is Edgar Wright. And you're kind of convincing me that Scott Pilgrim might be that movie.
Scott
I think I literally just have to I think I
think
literally just have to rewatch Shaun of the Dead because it might not be as good as I'm remembering or as Edgar Wrighty as it was just the first one that I saw, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right.
Oh man.
So that is a maybe as well. That kind what you just said may like literally convinced me that Scott Pilgrim is the one to play.
Well, I need to convince myself on Scott Pilgrim for sure.
We should definitely still
Such a
watch
good
the World's End though. If we watch Shaun of the Dead, we have to do that whole trilogy because they actually play very well together. Like
I mean, I like Hot Fuzz. I mean, that's
man.
it's great.
It's fun.
I mean, yeah,
and that's actually. I mean, when I watched The World's End, I watched Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz right before my screening in the theater, and I was literally like, I didn't cry, but I felt a huge emotional impact at the end of The World's End because it felt like the end of that saga, and like even though they're different characters, it felt like the same people, and I just felt so sad for them because I'm like, oh yeah, what happens now? You know, like you're old, you can't, you know, your time is past, like that's all you got were those 3 films, and now you're done. You know, like I don't know, that made me sad. But the next film, The Thin Red Line. This is my first and I think my only experience with God, what is the director's name?
Terrence Malick.
Terrence Malick, yes. And I mean, this film just fucking blew my mind. I think the way it, I mean, like this is the only Terrence Malick film that I've seen. If anyone has seen Terrence Malick, he obviously has a certain style, and I think just this being the one that I've seen from him, I mean, it blew my mind just because it deals with a war, and it's shot in a way that is insanity. You know, I watched this film as a part of my 1993 excursion, and I think it was Saving Private Ryan also came out in this year. I might be wrong, but I think this is a better film than Saving Private Ryan. Like just bar none. Like I absolutely love this film. How poetic it is, how slow it is, the imagery, the cinematography, the ideas behind it. I mean, there's a scene where like something's exploding and the camera just like pans off to like a butterfly in the middle of a war, and I'm just like, wow. Like it just blew my mind. So I would submit that. And this is also like one of the first times for me that Hans Zimmer popped up in my mind as the greatest living composer of all time. I think his score for this film is undeniable. Like if you just put this up on Spotify while you're working or studying or reading or relaxing, like it just sounds magical in just such a beautiful way. And you can tell this film was like the temp score for a lot of other films, because now when you hear it, like, oh, that kind of sounds like that other fantasy film. But it was first done here, and that's why I'm submitting it. What do you think about The Thin Red Line?
I remember watching that movie in college in my apartment with my roommate who doesn't care about movies at all, and we got to making fun of it as we were watching it because of the voiceovers, and I that might have soured my viewing experience of it a little bit, because what I remember most of that movie is there's a line where one of the characters, like there's, you know, it's like a battle or something, and the sound fades out, and there's just a character voiceover with a really bad Southern accent that's just like, what is life? And me and my roommate just had just laughed so much at that line and kind of made it like a thing that we. So, so that's my. I know it's a good movie. Like, it's not a bad movie.
You need to rewatch it in silence.
My Terrence Malick pick is probably Days of Heaven.
Yeah, I need to watch that.
The cinematography is like insane, like the lighting and just the how they made that film and is insane. So that would be my Terrence Malick pick. Yeah. But right now I was undecided on him. Like I didn't put any of his movies in my canon because it's only because I just wasn't I didn't know which one like was the Terrence Malick.
Yeah.
And now that I'm looking at all of them, Days of Heaven probably is what I would pick. I just feel like the Tree of Life is like him going to his like max. Like it's like his 2001 A Space Odyssey basically.
Yeah.
And it's like almost a self-parody of himself. So I think it goes too far. I wouldn't pick that one. But New World, I saw The New World recently, and that would be probably a tie for Days of Heaven.
Wow.
After my pick, because it was really good. Like as far, I don't know, just the genre of people discovering the new, like the first conquistadors and like settlers to the New World, and like it makes the Pocahontas story like actually interesting and not a cliche, and it has also it's like really restrained, like it's Terrence Malick, but like not, he's restraining his things that don't work if he does them too much, like the voiceovers and the over philosophizing stuff. So I don't know, those would be my two picks, but I should probably, again, I feel like all of yours is like, man, I need to rewatch this movie. I need to rewatch these movies because I know the viewing experience was was not the best.
Yeah, and I have a couple things to say about Terrence Malick. One thing before I forget, how you just talked about The New World made me think also something we haven't talked about the canon, but also I think art is a reflection of humanity. So in a lot of ways, like if you remember in school, when they would talk about the great, literature writers or the great painters and artists, it all kind of is in context of the history of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that should also be kind of a point, is like, what represents not only like a certain time period, like I think Children of Men kind of represents the paranoia and fear of the 2000s, like
post 9/11
exactly. So I think that should also be a point of thought. And
okay, I see what you're, no, that's good. I haven't thought about that. It's like putting, it is, you have to put history, the historical significance of films into it also. Yeah.
So what you said about A New World really made me think about that. The one thing I will say is like we definitely need a Terrence Malick. Again, I don't.
Obviously, yeah. I wanna include a Terrence Malick for sure. Yeah. Obviously, he's one of those directors.
Yeah.
I think I would fight for Days of Heaven.
Yeah.
If I had to, but I don't know.
But yeah, I guess
I should rewatch The Thin Red Line.
Yeah. And I was going to say, just because of his visual eye, I think again, I don't have like the film history that you do, but from my understanding, I think he's like one of the early visionaries of, and again, it gets to the self-parody thing of early visionary of that extreme, almost fisheye wide shot.
Yeah.
Like
the Steadicam too.
A supremely, naturalistic eye, like it's not even documentary because it's beyond that. Like it's almost aware of how aware of nature. It's almost like a nature focused kind of thing. And I think he's one of the few filmmakers that did that, and in my perspective, one of the earliest ones to do that. And you see it a lot now. Like I would even say Alfonso Cuarón is like directly influenced by him, like cinematography wise, like his wide shots and his handheld, they would not exist without Terrence Malick, I think. And we need to definitely we should figure out what to include of his. Yeah, for sure. All right, so next on the list, this one should be quick. Parasite.
Okay.
And what do I have to say about Parasite? Again, I think it's beautiful film, cinematography, score. I think it's edited to perfection. It is just an enjoyable film. But then also what it talks about, the social commentary of our times, with the wealth gap. Well, not even the wealth gap, but how wealth groups. I think it's like a very modern telling of, poor versus rich, and then how we are parasitic organisms of each other. And I love how the film doesn't have a good guy or villain. Like, some people watch the movie and they're like, "Oh, the rich people are the bad guys." And then I'm like, the poor people are literally robbing them. But then it's like, yeah, but they're poor, so they're allowed to rob them. But it's like a perpetual system of almost blame. And it's like the film kind of reveals that, whatever your opinion of the cast of characters is, but in reality, the answer is the system is broken. And it's like, well, no wonder no one changes the system when we're busy blaming each other. So I think that film is awesome, representative of that. I think it's also, I haven't seen a lot of Bong Joon-ho's films, but I think he's probably one that should definitely be on the canon. And this just being the one that I've seen, and it just being a marvelous film, I think that's one of my picks. What did you think about
Gotcha.
Parasite?
I really liked it. I feel really guilty that all of yours are question marks for me. That's what I'm thinking. Let's see. I mean, for him, like, I like The Host is a really good like creature movie that I would consider that it would also be a question mark for me. Like, and yeah, I guess you could convince me of Parasite. I feel like it's kind of like Scott Pilgrim, that it's on the edge, that you could definitely convince me.
Yeah.
I think the only things that are drawbacks for me is that it's so recent that I have a hard time thinking, like, is this gonna be a significant movie, or is this gonna be memorable in 10 years? I think
it will, because it's almost like a perfect reflection of our current time. Like, even with like this Squid Game show, I feel like everyone just loves it because I haven't seen it, but it's tackling the same ideas that Parasite did. But I think Parasite actually tackles the ideas in a way that is brilliant because it doesn't answer it. I think a lot of films, they have a political message or a whatever message that you want to say. And I think the weakest version of that is when you give an easy answer. And I love it. And I think that's the purpose of art, is that there is no easy answer. You look at all the great stories that have been told about wars or conflicts, and it's always like a sour ending of war never changes, or like history repeats itself, whatever the phrase is. But I feel like this film kind of captures that, where it's like at the end it's just a kid dreaming of him getting enough money to buy the house, but it's like that's never gonna happen. Like, you are in a system that is just made to keep you where you are. And I think that's very relevant, especially right now with like all the economic stuff happening in the world.
Yeah.
And it's just like, again, it's the paranoia of this generation. And I just love how it's so brilliant that a lot of people that watch the film, they just think it's a great film because it's entertaining, but no one even gets the subtext. And I'm like, oh, like, of course, like it's almost like the film is talking shit about you and you're not even aware.
I remember the thing that stuck out about me from that is it feels like it's such a control, like it's so controlled. It almost feels like a Stanley Kubrick movie, where you feel like every shot and every gesture and everything felt so like purposeful. I think that's what I really liked about that movie.
Yeah.
You could convince me of that one. I'll let that one. That makes sense.
So it's canon?
I can't think. Yeah, I'm kind of like, I'm starting to think. Well, we'll see. Let's keep going. Keep going.
Well,
let's wait till the end. But I think I might have to like declare some of these canon.
Okay.
For sure.
This next one has to be canon, and I'm gonna keep this one short. The Social Network.
Okay.
It has to be canon because, again, what it says about our society, what it says about this time period. I think it is the definitive film about human relationships in the 20th century. Like, just bar none, it is a definitive statement about our generation of people and humanity. And I think it also captures like the human desire of attention with this character who is just despicable. And
yeah,
I think it's David Fincher's best film.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And I think it's
Interesting.
Aaron Sorkin's best script. And I think it's
The Aaron Sorkin part I will agree with. Yeah.
and I think it is in the top 5 film scores of all time. It is like Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross's score has literally changed cinema, maybe for the worst, because everyone's trying to copy that synth, anxiety sound, where a soundtrack is more like weird, weird sounds
Yeah.
to prove anxiety. But I don't think people are as good as Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. They're two of my favorite musical artists of all time. I think the performances, like Jesse Eisenberg, is perfect as this like robotic shell that we've all seen in real life is truly a robotic shell, as Mark Zuckerberg. And
Yeah.
so I don't know.
That's true. God, it's gotten even worse over the years. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think it has to be there.
Okay, you could convince me of that. You could not convince me that it's David Fincher's best movie.
Okay.
I mean, aren't you a huge fan of Benjamin Button?
I am a huge fan of Benjamin Button. Yeah.
You wouldn't say that that's better? You think this one's his better or a better movie than it?
I think it's a better made film. I love Benjamin, just like how I think Scott Pilgrim's better than The World's End.
Yeah.
In a personal way, I personally love Benjamin Button more than Social Network.
Gotcha.
Because I think Benjamin Button, and I actually don't have this on this list because I thought maybe you wouldn't like it, but I mean that's another one I would recommend because I think it captures a whole life, and I absolutely hate, God, what is that film with the box of chocolates? I can't believe I forgot.
Forrest Gump?
I hate Forrest Gump. And I think Benjamin Button is the definitive American life film.
Are you
captures an American life?
Okay.
And the journey.
We're gonna have to have at some point. We're gonna have to have a Forrest Gump discussion.
Forrest Gump is such an ugly film, like visually.
Ugly.
It does nothing cinematic. It does nothing cinematically.
Well, okay.
It's all
it's not like
it's a
crazy or
it's
anything,
a bad script. The performances. I mean, it's a good film. But I don't think it's like good cinema. I think it's just memorable. I don't know. Benjamin Button is, for me, the de facto, like, this is about an American life in America. And, it captures a lifetime. And
I'm sorry. Without Forrest Gump, there's no Benjamin Button. So I'm just... Wow. Anything in Benjamin... I remember... From what I remember of Benjamin Button, it's like... I was just like, oh, yeah, that's Forrest Gump. Oh, yeah, that's also Forrest Gump. Oh, okay, yeah.
But here's the
Forrest
thing.
Gump.
Benjamin Button is based on a short story by Scott Fitzgerald. So, technically, it is the inspiration for Forrest Gump.
Nah.
Technically.
Come on. But for David Fincher, I mean, I have, in my canon, I have Fight Club and I have Seven. Those are my two David Fincher films that made it into canon. But The Social Network, again, it's like I want to.
The Social Network.
I want to say yes. I want to say yes on that one. Yeah, because of this culturally.
Yeah.
If you watched it in 100 years.
Oh my God!
And where people weren't like familiar with, let's just say social media is completely different at that point. It would be a good window into that kind of era. Yeah. And all these like weird founders, like Jeff Bezos types. It kind of does capture that like persona.
So,
all right.
So it's canon?
Yeah.
We still have to rewatch it. Yeah, I think all the films, even if we call it canon, we have to have an episode on it. So, that
will be our goal. Yeah.
All right. So that's canon. Thank you so much. And then I guess you'll be happy for this next one.
Okay.
Is Fight Club.
Yes.
So that's canon. So
the first one that we are in agreement. We don't have to. There's no question mark for me.
Okay. Do you have anything to say about Fight Club then, since we both agree?
I mean, I have a lot to say, but we should definitely do an episode on it for sure. I think the main thing is just that it's become a joke over the years that people that don't know much about movies will say that Fight Club is their favorite movie, or like bros kind of will say that that's their favorite movie. And then there's also the counter cliche that people will come back and be like, yeah, but it's about the opposite, man. It's about the opposite of that. Yeah. What the bros think it's about. And that's a cliche too. I just feel like it's a way better movie than any of the cliches. Like it's one of my like, it's just a movie. Like the cinematography is like great. Like it's culturally, like it defines like the turn of the century.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
it defines like this kind of like, I don't know how many times that I've been listening to something completely unrelated to Fight Club, and I've thought about Fight Club, like, oh yeah, like, wow, how it defined that like kind of weird moment in history, like for men, you know, like for masculinity, like at the end of the century, like,
yes,
I don't know, for sure, it's canon.
Yeah, I think, and I think, you know, if once we have a full list, I think the beauty of Fight Club, and even the beauty of The Social Network, is that they are refractions of each other in a different time period. So I think Fight Club, you know, came out in '99. So I think it captured the '90s and the end of a century. I think it's a century. I don't know. The end of a generation that begins the generation that spawned people like Mark Zuckerberg. You know, and I think Fight Club was the last bastion of, and I think it's toxic as well, and I think it's evil, but it's like these people who are so angry at the system, so they decide to destroy it. You know, like in the '90s especially, it's all like anti-government, anti-this, anti-that, and then people realized in the 2000s and the 2010s, now it's like, why don't I just do my own thing? Why don't I just become an entrepreneur? Why don't I just, you know, fuck the, you know, like it's the same energy, but it's in a worse way because technology. And I think that's the beauty of Social Network, is like, it's like, what if, you know, the characters of Fight Club had the power of social media and they created it themselves. And instead of being like explosive, masculine endangerment of, physical reaction, it's all digital, and it's all mental, and it's all emotional and psychological. And I think it's way scarier in The Social Network.
But it comes from the same feelings of like impotence.
Yeah. Yep.
That's it's the same source. Yeah, that's cool. I've never thought about that connection between those two.
Oh man. Yeah. And I think in a weird way, and maybe I don't know, this is kind of weird, but I've been thinking about this a lot. It's like I feel like the age of man, like men, of masculine, it's collapsing, because it's like, you know, when egos are unchecked for how long, you know, it's you know, you see all the great empires have always collapsed, and it's like, why is there not been a immortal society? And I'm not saying that. Well, I am saying that. I think men are the core of that. You know, it's like ego gets to a certain point in a man to where it self-destructs. And I think the future, hopefully, if it doesn't, you know, destroy itself and there is no planet, but I think the future is like, you know, what is the female version of human society? And like, will that ever get a chance? You know, like, imagine in 1,000 years, it's like, yeah, you remember when men were in charge of everything? And everything was horrible, and there was like
everyone
nuclear
chuckles,
holocaust. And I think again, another refraction of that is Children of Men, and how it specifically talks about like women can't have children anymore, and that's the end of humanity. You know, without that group, you know, there is no humanity without women. Yet for some reason throughout time, and it's, you know, even now, it's like men are at the top of the totem pole. And I mean, it hasn't produced anything that great so far. So, you know, it's like,
man, I gotta rewatch that. Yeah. See, I don't even remember. I saw it I was in high school, so I'm thinking like I probably wasn't even thinking that deeply about it at the time.
Oh man, it has so much to say about like femininity and masculinity and stuff. Which, yeah, and this is not a smooth segue, but I think you will agree. But Lord of the Rings, and I put. The trilogy, I think of them as a complete whole. They have to be canon. I don't even have to say anything about the Lord of the Rings.
I won't disagree there. I put the Fellowship of the Rings as canon, and the other ones were question marks. Like, do we put all of it? But yeah, I mean, I guess all of it should be in the canon for sure. Just because it's a complete story, and all three films are very equally, you know, like equal in what do you call that? Value. Yeah. So, yeah. I had no argument there.
Awesome. Canon. All right. And the next one, Schindler's List.
Yep.
Canon? Okay.
No argument from me on that one.
Yeah.
For sure. It defines Holocaust movies. It defines, I mean, that's pretty much it. Like, for sure. The World War II must see. Yeah.
And again, a reflection
Spielberg
of history and humanity at its worst.
Yeah.
And then next, this one's going to be a little more difficult. First Reformed by Paul Schrader.
Yeah, I mean, oh man, you know, like that for that one, it's one I have to see again. Like I just don't know. And like for Paul Schrader, obviously, like the way I would include him is through Taxi Driver, and then even maybe Mishima.
Yeah.
But
which is one we currently have. So
yeah, and so besides that though, I'm like, I don't know.
Oh yeah, three is too many.
Is he that good that he deserves 3?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm being really minimalist and very picky, but I will say that the thing that the First Reform has going for it is as far as like climate change movies, like movies about like the despair of living in this time period where climate change is just inevitable and you know, we have the horror of the future.
Yeah.
That would be my main thing. That would make me want to put that in canon, but I think I have to rewatch it.
Yeah, we definitely have to rewatch it. I guess the one thing I would fight for on it is that, but then also, and I think this is, again, here's a prediction for the future. Not only will it be ran by women, but it will be completely agnostic. And I think this film is like one of the only films that I've seen tackle faith in a way that isn't, you know, like, you know, faith is bad or whatever. But it's
oh, dude.
But it shows faith through a person losing faith. And I think I have
any Ingmar Bergman film
is that,
for sure.
Yeah.
Dude. And the seventh seal, which we got to watch that at some point. It's in my canon. It's my favorite Ingmar Bergman film. One of my favorite films. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. And it's like, it's like a medieval knight coming back from the Crusades, and just like the whole movie is just like dense, like philosophical, just like him talking. He's talking to like a devil, maybe is the devil or Satan, who's kind of having these philosophical conversations with him.
Wow.
And that's faith. Yeah. You would probably really like Ingmar Bergman.
Oh,
like,
man,
now that I think about it, if you like how much you like First Reformed, like we got to watch that one at some point.
Absolutely. But yeah, that's my argument for that is the faith challenge. And I think it's just interesting because, just briefly, when I watched the film, I watched it in a packed theater in Alabama with a bunch of Christians, and it was the majority of them just walked out. But there was one lady who came up to me and she was like, that movie made me think about things I don't think I would have ever thought about in my life. And now I don't know what to think. And it was like, I thought it was beautiful. Like maybe some people who are, you know, Christian or religious would be like, oh, this film, you know, is brainwashing people to lose their religion.
Yeah.
But I think that is the definition of art, is it questions you. And the fact that this lady who seemingly her whole life is a devout follower entered this film because it's called First Reformed. It has a church in the poster. It has a priest in the poster. You know, the synopsis says it's about a priest. And you come out of it, you know, like within 2 hours, an idea can enrapture you to the point of your whole life is in question. And I think if that is not the definition of art, then I don't know what is. But so that's a film that had a deep impact on me. But I'll put it as a maybe for now. We definitely will watch it. And then here is another one. My submission. All right.
Okay. Do you have something you could rant about for like a minute? Because I'm gonna go get some more wine.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Whatever your next one is, just opine about it.
Okay. So the next one I am going to rant about is Inglourious Bastards. I'm not sure what David's take on Inglourious Bastards is, but it is my favorite Tarantino film, which may come as a surprise to many because he has a lot of great films, and I think a lot of people love a lot about Tarantino. But I think Inglorious Bastard does a lot of things that I think he is known for in a very perfect way. The way it's structured, in like different acts is a normal thing for him. But I think this is the best execution of it. We follow multiple characters, we follow multiple timelines. You know, the idea of the whole Nazi regime and how it distorts timeline. I think
All
it's
right, I'm back.
yeah. So I'm talking about Inglorious Bastards,
Oh,
and I basically
cool.
just talked about what I liked about it. But I think it deserves to be canon because basically what I just said was
Sorry.
I think it's him at his best. Like I think it has all
Really?
his cliches
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
in a positive way, but and I think it does it in a way that it's enjoyable and it's succinct, and I love how it tackles, you know, alternate reality of the Nazi regime. Like it does what I think he was trying to do in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but failed epically for me. But I think Inglorious Bastards is like I think his best film, technically.
I the only Tarantino, because I think like he's so over known, like he's
Hmm.
so like almost everyone knows about him, even if they're not into film that much. Like I don't know, I feel like I'm very picky like with him of what I would put in canon, and I feel like Pulp Fiction is it's the only one that I put
Yeah,
in canon for him, just because Pulp Fiction has all of his things and his cliches, but I mean also it's
trademarks. There's a
yeah,
better word. Yeah, I was trying to
I
think
don't
of a
know.
better word.
Yeah, he's just like that's his I don't know, that's his best movie. I feel like just that's his most universal, like this is Quentin Tarantino movie.
Yeah,
It's his second movie, which is like really impressive. It's way more like it's his most influential movie, I feel like.
yeah,
After it came out, it pretty much started this whole 90s where people could just make these movies where characters are just having normal conversations, and that's just whatever. Movies became more casual and talky, and yeah.
yeah.
So that would be my pick.
Okay, I will secede to that. Because I do want to revisit Inglorious Bastard. I want to know what is his best actual visual work. Because while you were talking, I was trying to think. I was like, I think Inglorious Bastard's better visually. But then
Hmm.
running through the scenes in my memory, I was like, well, maybe the scenes in Pulp Fiction were more visually stunning.
um I guess visually maybe Inglorious Bastards
Yeah,
is a little more, there's more visually to
yeah,
there, but maybe I'm realizing a thing with me about like canon is that it's kind of like I want to pick whatever the director's strengths are and like pick the
mm.
best of that. I don't know. So I'm like, visuals are not really like Quentin Tarantino's
Yeah.
thing.
That's a
Like
weird
his
thing I
thing
just
is
realized. Yeah, like
his thing is like the dialogue
yes,
and the references to older movies and older movie genres, and I
yeah.
feel like Pulp Fiction definitely has that,
I
both
guess
of those things.
I guess that's why I like Inglorious Bastards more, because I do have a bias towards anything foreign, and the amount of foreign languages spoken, and the amount of
Oh,
like
mhm.
culture, like awareness. Like there's literally a whole scene that's around a character who isn't German, interacting in
Yeah,
German, and then
yeah,
slipping up, and because of
uh-huh.
that, a whole explosion happens. And I think that's like, oh, that's such a like, that's a screenwriter's
It's a great scene. Yeah,
it's screenwriter's wet dream. It's like, oh, this guy's pretending to be German, and it happens. It just sounds like something he would talk about for 45 minutes in an interview, and I would get a headache. But in the film, it's beautiful. It's like, oh
yeah,
man, like of course, like something dumb like that would happen. But
yeah.
I'll put that as maybe. I have to rewatch it. And the next one, of course, is another Tarantino. It's Pulp Fiction. Yeah, I think it has to be
Oh,
canon.
cool.
Like
All right.
it cemented the American crime film. Like I think Scorsese obviously had a huge hand in it, but I think what Tarantino does, how you said in dialogue, there's so many bad versions of Tarantino that have evolved from Pulp Fiction. Like
Yeah,
everyone thinks they can do the smart, witty, crime person, and no one can. Like, I don't know how he does it, but he does it, and his dialogue is impeccable. And I think it's all the performers. Like, he just has a knack of casting. Like Samuel L. Jackson, is just a rock star. Like, it's undeniable.
It's also kind of just crazy. Like he's really good at revitalizing actors' careers. Like I mean, Samuel Jackson was kind of unknown before that. And then John Travolta's career also was just in the downhill, and that brought him kind of back. You know, it's like it's cool. It's cool when directors can do that. You know.
Yeah. And then my next film is Christopher Nolan's Inception.
Okay, good. Me too.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. So, I just, that's such a defining. It's his. I would submit that as his masterpiece into the canon.
Interesting.
And yeah, I mean that's just him. That's the best of Christopher Nolan, in my opinion.
See, again, we're in the Edgar Wright thing. I think it is his best film, but it's not my favorite. But yeah, all right. So it's in canon. Everyone knows about Inception, so we don't have to get into that too deep. Yeah. Mad Max Fury Road is my other submission. I think that is the de facto definition of action film on steroids.
It's I put that. That's in my canon as well. So that is in.
Okay, and then my favorite Christopher Nolan film is Interstellar. I think the way he captures emotion. And I know what you're. This film is horrible on the first watch. I gave this film like a 7 out of 10 on watch 1, 8 out of 10 on watch 2, 9 out of 10 on watch 3, 10 out of 10 on watch 4. On watch 5, I realized this is Nolan's best film, and he will never reach the heights because the emotion that he captures in the film. I don't know why, but when you rewatch it, something about it just makes way more sense. And it like I realized, I was like, oh my God, this is such a sick story about a father who is so self-obsessed with his passion, which is space travel, that he is willing to leave his kids who are going to die, and he still cannot not do the thing he loves. And I think that's just like a beautiful thing in a film, in a blockbuster film. And I think the biggest thing that like impacts me emotionally is, I think definitively there's no one should argue this ever. I think it's Hans Zimmer's best score. Like, bar none. I
won't argue that at all.
It is insane how good of a score it is. Like, I dare really anyone to just pull it up on Spotify or whatever you listen on.
Oh, yeah. And just don't get like stare into the distance, contemplating your existence.
It is insane. And like rewatching the scenes where, like spaceships are spinning and you have to load a spaceship on another spinning spaceship, and Hans Zimmer's score is just like beating you over the head. And I mean, the piano tunes, I don't know. I think it's his best work. It just has a harsh learning curve until you realize what the actual theme of the story is with honestly, a douchebag dad. I think it's kind of amazing.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about that at all watching on the first viewing, so I will have to rewatch that one at some point. All right. I just think my main drawbacks for that one is just that I feel like the things that it did that were interesting were very like derivative of things like movies that are like 2001: A Space Odyssey, especially. Yeah. And I don't know, just movies that had already kind of, I don't know, it just didn't feel like it, besides maybe the character thing that you're talking about. I feel like it didn't do anything new that was like that groundbreaking. And it's not Christopher Nolan's best movie, so I'm kind of like,
yeah,
I don't know.
We'll have to rewatch it and see if that second watch improves on you. I think it will. But that brings me to, I think, another huge director's best film, The Grand Budapest Hotel. I think it's Wes Anderson's masterpiece.
Oh man, that's one you.
That's the one.
I really like that movie.
You have no Wes Anderson on your list?
No, I do. Oh, I do for sure. The Royal Tenenbaums is mine that I put. So That's and the ones I have question marks on are the Fantastic Mr. Fox, just for stop motion.
Oh yeah.
And then Life Aquatic is probably and Rushmore is really good. I mean, both of those. So I was kind of tied, honestly, between Royal Tenenbaums, Life Aquatic, and Rushmore, because
Yeah.
both of those are just like so Wes Anderson. They have all of his things in them, all of his interesting quirks and symmetry and humor and
Yeah.
like character wise, the Royal Tenenbaums is the most interesting, and the most like it has the biggest cast, I guess. So it's like the Grand Budapest Hotel, it's like two characters are the main characters.
Yeah.
And then Life Aquatic, it's like Bill Murray pretty much carries that movie for being Bill Murray. So I don't know. I just like, and I think the Royal Tenenbaums just covers like a lot of emotions that aren't in a lot of other. I don't know. It feels like the more complete movie of all of his movies.
Yeah. That's
I
interesting.
really like the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah.
But I feel like it leans too much in the direction of like silly, where he doesn't ever get into his like poignant side, which he has a really good poignant side that I feel like is in his other movies. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's interesting.
Have you seen his others or?
I've seen Mr. Fantastic Fox, which I loved. And I saw the Royal Tenenbaums, and I've seen Moonrise Kingdom and Isle of
Yeah, I like that one
Dogs.
too.
I haven't seen Life Aquatic.
Okay.
I think the reason I picked the Grand Budapest Hotel over the other ones that I've seen, I think the Grand Budapest Hotel is his like most perfect, like visual, aesthetic, composition, like the whole piece as a whole, I think fits.
Yeah.
And then I think even emotionally, I feel like, and this is again, I don't know how many times you've rewatched Grand Budapest, but I've rewatched it like 4 times.
Mhm.
And every time I've rewatched it, it just becomes more emotional. Like I get way more attached to the idea of this owner of a hotel and how he inherited it from this guy who is, just obsessed with like pleasing older women. And it's almost like this selfless act of, doing things to please others. And the whole idea of like this kid who is just, working as a busboy or whatever he is in the hotel. I don't know. It just grew a lot of emotion to where like I actually emotionally think this is his highlight of his career. So I mean, how many times have you seen Grand Budapest? Just like once, maybe?
I rewatched twice, I think. I
Okay.
rewatched it this year, I think. And
Oh.
it was one of those where it's like it's such a smooth, perfect,
Yeah.
One of those movies that just glides along and there's nothing that bothers you about it. There's nothing, it's a great movie.
Yeah.
But for some reason I haven't seen the other ones in a lot. Like I haven't seen Rushmore in a while. I haven't seen Royal Tenenbaums in a while.
Yeah.
For some reason, Royal Tenenbaums stands out to me out of all his that are. It's like his most well-rounded movie for some reason.
Yeah. I do love the script of Royal Tenenbaums, but I think his like aesthetic is not matured yet.
Okay.
We'll definitely have to revisit all of his work at some point. But
Yeah,
I'll put a maybe on
for
that.
sure.
The next
For
one,
sure.
and this is a weird one. 500 Days of Summer.
It's not that weird.
I think it is the best romantic film that I've ever seen. I mean, with the exception of Her, but I think how it covers like a rom-com, and I think it's beautiful because it's a romance film from the perspective of a man. Which, I mean,
Yeah.
you'd probably argue most romantic films are from the perspective of a man because they're directed by men. But
The
this
male
one,
gaze.
but this one makes it obvious to where it's like, midway through the film, the main character is like realizing the faults of this woman that he's obsessed with because he put her on a pedestal. And I think most men do that. And I think this is one of the only films I've seen where it's like, oh yeah, she wasn't that great. I wasn't that great. We're both kind of shitty. And that relationship should have never worked. And then it ends with him just being infatuated with another woman. And it's like, well, that's like the definition of a man in a way, you know. It's like and I think it just perfectly captures the romantic side of what men go through. And I think, you know, like a lot of people watch the film and they're like, oh, she was the jerk or he was the jerk. And again, I almost relate it to Parasite, where it's like, well, they're both kind of the jerks. You know, like two things can be true at the same time. And I think it really exposes how someone perceives a narrative or someone's choices by, you know, black and white. And I think just one of my favorite scenes in this film is the expectation versus reality scene.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that is just like a staple of cinema for me, where it's like, oh, that's such a genius, beautiful way to show how someone feels during a moment. And I think all of us, especially me, I always plan things in my life and I expect things to go a certain way and they always collapse. And that's like one of the only films that I've seen that captures that feeling of like, I expected this to happen and the reality was so much worse. And it just sucks. You know, it's just like sometimes life doesn't go the way you planned. And I think the film captures that beautifully and in a nice rom-com.
I need to rewatch it. Yeah, that's one I need to rewatch. I haven't seen in like forever, but I remember liking it a lot.
Yeah.
But and I also don't think I have like any romantic comedies that I know of, but obviously we have to include one because that genre is such a huge genre in film. So yeah, that should definitely be on our watch list so that we can look at that one again.
All right, so that's maybe. Next one is District 9, Neil Blomkamp's debut film, produced by Peter Jackson. I think it is one of the de facto sci-fi films, the way it captures African culture. Like, it is just so amazing that the film exists. Like, it captures, you know, a group of people and a country that I've never thought of with, I forgot the name of the exact country, but it's in the nation of,
Isn't it South Africa or is it not?
I just know it's what is the city? It's like with the biggest Johannesburg.
Yeah.
So it takes place in Johannesburg, but the way it captures that culture in this like unique way of having these aliens, you know, and again it captures the like immigrant and the you know, kind of like what it's kind of like a metaphor for society with
racism.
For racism and with what is it called? People who you know, like from Syria or whatever.
Migrants?
Yeah, migrants. Like, you know, when their nation or their cities, refugees, exactly. I think it is a beautiful metaphor for like the refugee system and how it's handled in every nation just by humanity, how we deal with refugees and how they're seen as lower beings, and this is literalized with having aliens. But then also how it's shot. Again, it captures that like docu feel. Like when I rewatched it a couple years ago, I was just amazed at how beautiful the like shots were, and it all feel like it's all handheld. It feels like a documentary, and the performance by the main character is just immaculate. And you feel his like panic as he's transforming into this alien creature, and then it's just throughout the whole thing, it's beautiful. The way it plays with like practical effects, you know, explosions of bodies and heads and just the whole sci-fi aesthetic is just perfect. And I think it's just like the perfect sci-fi low budget film about a topical subject, and that's why I recommend it.
You know, you could, you know what? Yeah, you've convinced me. Put that in the canon.
Nice.
that makes sense. Like, yeah, because I can't think of another good like sci-fi movie that tackles those subjects that well. So
nice, dude. It's essentially like, I mean, not to compare to like real life situations, but you know, like K Vadis Ada. You know, it's kind of the same central idea of refugees and then the systemic effects of that, you know, when a system doesn't work. And then this, I think the where it crosses into brilliance is you have someone who was not a refugee suddenly turn into a refugee because of an infection, you know, and that's where the sci-fi comes in, where you use it to become a metaphor for reality.
Right.
And oh my God, that's where it makes it beautiful, because he's like, I don't want to be one of them. I don't want to be one of them. And he's like becoming subhuman But then by the end of the film, it's like it's beautiful and it's touching and it's emotional. Love it.
It's kind of like it's didn't it come out the same year as Avatar? But yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of like a better version of Avatar. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh
Like
my
it's
God.
the themes. Yeah.
Yeah. We have to rewatch it, even though we accepted it. All these films
definitely.
we're gonna have to rewatch at some point.
To make an episode. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so the next one is responsible for my film awakening, Drive by
Yeah.
yeah. I think it is the de facto silent protagonist film. I think it's Ryan Gosling's best performance. Neon, the cinematography, I love it.
Yeah. The music.
Yep.
And Nicholas Winding Refn, like it's like he's one of those people that I really wish he was just made more movies, because I feel like he has so much, like,
Potential.
I don't know, like he has so much potential.
Yeah.
But it's just he makes really great movies like Drive, and then he just makes just head scratchers like the Neon Demon that are just like,
Yeah.
what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
I mean, Bronson is a really good, you wouldn't think of it as it's not like his aesthetic, but like great movie by him. Even Only God Forgives, I kind of like that one. And then even the TV show that he made recently, I really liked it, but I wished it had been a movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, but Drive is his best. Like, Drive is his style, like, encapsulated into the best version. So yeah.
So
and when I think of when I see Ryan Gosling, like, I think of Drive. Like, that's his. So yeah, it's definitely canon.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd add on to that is I think it inspired an entire. I mean, there's probably films before this. Maybe you can educate me on that. But I think after it, there's so many post revenge films. I feel like this is the first post revenge film where it's like, something happens, someone was taken, blah blah blah. You need to kill everyone. But the film is like almost not concerned with that. It's quiet and it's silent and it's artsy and it's indie and it's more of a emotional experience versus a visceral one. And I think this was the first one, and honestly the best one that's ever done it. Like, I think Pig is like a version of this.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very, like, I love the A24 aesthetic is such a thing now. But like I like seeing movies that are like A24 movies before A24, what really became popular, and that is definitely one where I just like that aesthetic, like focusing on one character, and it's very focused, very artsy. Like, it's the story is just kind of like a pulp story, but like it's done in such an artful way, that it's just so much more than what if you just read the script,
Yeah.
Good movie.
Yep. And then next, again, this is another film I absolutely love. I think it's Jake Gyllenhaal's best performance, Nightcrawler. I think it is a definitive piece of. I think it also is representative of our time, with how it shows media, and how it's so. I guess abusive is the right word. Like, how it
abusive.
It just manufactures stuff. And there's a beautiful scene in the film where it shows that firsthand when they're showing, a character enter a house, and they are obviously exploiting it and maximizing it for the most emotional impact for the viewers. And then I think, Jake Gyllenhaal, his performance is just magnificent, and I don't know, I think it's deserving.
I'm like on the fence about that. I put a question mark, even though, like, I really like that movie.
Yeah.
But I'm like, does it stand out? Like, lots of the, like, themes in it I've seen in other movies. Like, Network comes to mind, just because it's about a TV station and kind of the cynical look at TV and what that's all about. And then also Videodrome. I think of a lot with the whole themes of, like, violence in TV and warping people's perceptions. And then Jake Gyllenhaal himself has been in so many good movies, like, and he's done so many good performances. So I'm like, but
you don't think this is his best?
It is kind of my favorite. I think it's like, I think it's my favorite of his performances.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's why I'm on the fence about that one.
Okay. We'll put it on
We
maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And then the next one I have is La La Land. I think you
Oh fuck!
yeah, I don't think you'll put it into canon. But
I'm never gonna. No,
what?
that's gonna have to be an honorable mention because I hated that movie when I saw it. It's
Wow.
I just didn't like it at all. I thought it was very awkward, like just super like as a movie musical, super awkward. As a I don't even know like what the good defining feature of it is. It's mainly a musical.
Yeah.
But the I just don't remember the singing being very good or the choreography being very good or anything. Like movie musical is such a huge genre, and I feel like there's so many other examples, better examples of it.
Yeah.
And I just wouldn't ever put it in there for some. And then even the director, Damien Chazelle,
Mm-hmm.
like he's made better movies. So I mean, Whiplash, I would put that in canon.
Wow. Yeah.
That's a canon pick for me. So I'm like, yeah, who needs La La Land? I don't think.
Well,
I don't know.
We'll definitely have to revisit it because I think the ending for me is what pushes it over the top. Is the whole idea of like a dream kind of falling apart.
Yeah, I remember I liked that.
Yeah.
That sequence, but it just didn't push it over the top for me.
All right. Well, we'll move on. I want to say I don't think you've seen this film. Night is Short, Walk On Girl.
Nope.
Okay, so it is a Japanese anime film, and I think this is one of the definitive Japanese anime films that I've seen. It is based on a novel. It's about this young woman just having a night out. I don't know if it's Tokyo or maybe it's Kyoto. She's having a night out in a Japanese town, and she's just doing a pub crawl. So it's essentially like The World's End, but with a young girl, and it's just about this endless night, and it is absolutely beautiful. The way, I mean, I think you'll like the film. I think maybe some of the hardcore Japanese things maybe you won't like, but the central idea of the film, like the way it feels endless. Like some films they feel long, and not in a bad way, but it feels like wow, how much stuff is packed into this story. And I think this is one of those films where it just I feel like I'm on this journey with this young woman as she's just discovering herself through this just pub crawl. And I think it's beautiful. I think it's like one of the best anime films I've ever seen, period. I mean, I would put it on par with like the Miyazaki films, like the way it tackles the visual aesthetics, but it's all about like an adult theme, and it's just about discovering yourself. And I don't know, I thought it was amazing. We definitely have to see it. So
all right,
I'll
You've
put
got
that
me
on
hyped.
There. Yeah. And then the next one is I forgot the name of the director, but I think you've seen this film, The House That Jack Built.
Oh yeah. Lars von Trier.
Yeah, so this is the only Lars film that I've seen. I think maybe some of his other films might be better. I just haven't seen them. But this being the only one I've seen, and this is probably one of the only films I've ever watched that made me close my eyes, because it's just so shocking. I mean, it's about a serial killer. It's literally about a serial killer. I mean, it's not about a serial killer in a way that is fun or light, even though the film does have a lot of brevity to it.
It's fun, yeah. I would say it's fun, but I don't know.
But for me, it was very disturbing. But I liked it because it was challenging. Again, like it gets to that central question, like it questions humanity in a way. And I just thought it was a beautiful film. And because of how challenging it is and how it talks about creation, I think it's using a serial killer in a metaphorical way of how it feels to create something. And so that's why I'm submitting.
Yeah. All right. I think Lars von Trier, I put all of his question mark. I didn't pick one of his yet to put in the canon. Yeah. I mean, I would be tied between Melancholia, Antichrist, and Dogville, I guess. But Antichrist is probably the one that I would lean the most towards. That's just hit the most Lars von Trier movie.
Yeah.
Where it just so so dark and like tragic, but like also just absurd and surreal, and it's such a good movie.
Yeah.
But then Melancholia again, and those are like, he has a trilogy. I forget what he calls it, but like a depression trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like Antichrist, Melancholia, and then maybe the Nymphomaniac, or films.
Yeah.
And they all touch on different aspects of like depression. And but Antichrist is just the most interesting, maybe because of the religious kind of iconography that it's in the movie, makes it feel like it's like greater than what it is. But we should definitely watch. I don't know. Eventually, we'll get in years. We'll get to his movies and watching those. That trilogy. Well, I didn't like the Nymphomania movies that much, but Antichrist and Melancholia are definitely worth it. And Dogville.
Yeah,
it's a very weird movie, but good. Lars von Trier.
Nice
film.
Okay, so I have two left. I guess I'll get the obvious one out of the way. Spirited Away. That is probably my favorite Miyazaki film. I haven't seen all his work, so I might be missing some, but I think it is his masterpiece so far. So I would recommend that one for Canon.
Yeah, you're probably right. I put all of his he's another one that I just put all of his as question mark because I didn't know which is my favorite. I'm kind of tied between Howl's Moving Castle, Spirited Away, and Princess Mononoke. And Princess Mononoke is like the most interesting to me because it's like it's got those environmental themes in it, which are really cool. But Spirited Away is like feels like it's the most visually interesting and like iconic of his movies.
Yeah.
I feel like I would be fine with putting Spirited Away in. It's just that I think the only thing that I don't know. I don't remember much about that. Like besides a few images, I'm like, it's about, I just remember it's about a girl. She somehow finds this castle and all of these crazy characters. And that's it. Like, that's all I remember about the plot of the movie. But, I mean, I think we definitely have to include a Miyazaki film. So I would be fine with putting Spirited Away in there.
Okay.
As his pick.
So we'll put that for Canon as now, and then when we revisit all his films at some point, we will look back on that. The other film, I don't think you've seen this, but it is a French film, stop motion. It's called My Life as a Zucchini.
Nope.
Oh, okay. So this is, I don't know. I need to rewatch it. It's a very short film. I think I want to say it's like 70 minutes long. Like, it is super short. But it's essentially about this kid who is suffering with like post-traumatic stress disorder, like literally a child, and it is a child movie, like it's PG, and it deals with this, and it is, to me, it was a monumental experience because I've always wanted to make kids films, because I never got to experience a lot of kids films when I was younger. Like, I think one of the earliest kids films I watched was like The Lion King at like 15. So like literally I grew up watching South Park and rated R films. And I always thought, like, man, I feel like all my stuff is too dark to write. You know, like I start a story and I just immediately get into some dark depressive stuff to where I'm like, I don't think I could ever write a kids film. And I just randomly stumbled upon this film. It's on Netflix. And it is one of the darkest films I've ever watched, and it's PG, and it's just about a kid who is suffering through depression and the loss of a parent, and I don't know, it's just done in a way to where you see it through the perspective of a kid. So I think a kid watching it would experience it as this kid is, but as an adult, you're thinking, oh my God, this is tragic, this is heartbreaking, this is intense, but it's not showing any intense imagery. All of it's there, and I just think it's a film that really made me realize that, like, oh, you can make a kid's film about a deep subject. You just have to show it through how a kid sees it and how it, when you're a child and you experience, like, let's say your parents divorced or something, as a kid you don't really understand it. You remember the moments, but as a kid you don't really realize the implications of it, and it's only upon reflection that you realize the darkness of it or whatever. And I think this film just really made me have an epiphany on how to create a narrative that can be told to kids without blunting the reality of life. And I don't know, it just had a huge impact on me. I really want to rewatch it. That's kind of why I put it on this list. I don't know if it'll be
Yeah.
canon, but the fact that it did that, like it was about that, like I don't think there's any other PG film that I can even imagine that comes even like an inch close to the amount of emotional depth that this film tackled uh,
That's cool.
through a
I
PG
really want to
rating.
watch it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then of course it was a French film that did it. So I think
Yeah.
it's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Cool.
I'll put a maybe on that. So I was gonna ask you because I think a lot of the films on your list I haven't seen. I need to go to the bathroom real quick. Can you start on that, and I'll be right back.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
All right. So I think I'll just I'm gonna start. I mean, mine is too long, so I'm just gonna go with the 10 out of 10s is what I'm gonna mention, because it's hard. It's hard to think about what to include. Like I said, I've got 113. So, I mean, the ones that are personal 10 out of 10s for me and that are also canon, that I don't think Anthony, yeah, I don't think, well, no, he has seen There Will Be Blood. I mean, just Paul Thomas Anderson's masterpiece, just a movie you wouldn't think is entertaining or you wouldn't think that you'd like. It's just if you read the description, oh, it's just a movie about a oil tycoon in the early 20th century, you know, and his as he builds his business. Like, it just sounds so, it's such a one of those movies that sounds really boring if you describe it, but is so good. Like, between the score, the cinematography, the directing, the acting by Daniel Day-Lewis. Like, if someone had never seen Daniel Day-Lewis in a movie, I would recommend it. So that's for sure. 10 out of 10 canon. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, 10 out of 10. Michel Gondry's masterpiece. You know, the writing, impeccable. The acting, one of Jim Carrey's more interesting movies. Just great. Just 10 out of 10. And it's so unique. Like, it's such a weird, dreamlike, unique movie that I think a lot of other movies have tried to be, but haven't quite reached. Amélie, another 10 out of 10 for me. French romance comedy. Just, I think that the editing of it. Are you back, Anthony?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you a recap.
Okay.
All right. There will be blood, which I think you're like on the fence about. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if you would put that in canon.
Yeah, I'm on the fence about that one.
All right. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Oh,
What do you feel about that? Or have you seen it?
I saw it before my film Awakening. So
Okay.
I remember it was good, but like again, I this was like when I was watching, you know, just dumb blockbusters and thought they were the best films of all time. That is definitely like I want to say just put it on Canon because I know for a fact I'll love it. Like I just all the
Yeah,
images that I've seen, the ideas. I love Charlie Kaufman.
Yeah, between Charlie Kaufman and then Michel Gondry's like dream-like directing, like, it's such a good, and the emotions of it, it's just,
Yeah.
and just Jim Carrey, like, what a weird movie for Jim Carrey to be in. That is great, you know, and just his performance.
Yeah, I'd put that in. I'd put that in.
Have you seen Amélie?
On Amélie? No.
Amélie.
That's like
French
a foreign
film.
film, right?
Yeah, it's French, and it's one of those that's just like, I don't know how to describe it. It's just really well edited,
Mhm.
just getting inside the mind of this quirky person, and the whole movie is in the style of her. And I don't know, it just feels like one of those just perfect, like, well balanced. But like, also, if someone had never seen like a French film,
Ooh.
I feel like it kind of captures the French feeling or essence. French people might be offended by that, but I feel like it does. It captures something about modern French movies that, or European movies in general, that I just really like. Mulholland Drive.
Oh yeah,
David Lynch.
Yeah.
David Lynch's modern masterpiece, I feel like. I don't know what to say about, my explanations are not nearly as thought out as yours, but I just put David Lynch's masterpiece
Yeah.
as my reason for this. Beside that and Eraserhead,
Yeah.
I think are my only canons for him.
For sure, he needs to be on the list because he has.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any of his films yet, but just knowing the influence and the aesthetics and the I don't want to say quirkiness, but his he seems to have a very distinct voice, and I think it's definitive in cinema history.
And also one that's you see all the time, or I see in lesser forms of people imitating, but it just doesn't come across as like genuine like his does.
Yeah.
The Matrix, would you put that in canon?
The Matrix 1 or The Matrix as a whole? The first one?
Just the first one, yeah.
Oh, man. I think I would need to rewatch it. Again, that's another film I watched when I was young.
Yeah.
I think I would, but I just don't remember the visuals enough to... Not just the visuals, but the entirety of it. Like, for some reason, I just remember there was some weird flaws to it. But
okay,
I think it would definitely go canon on a rewatch, and I think we should definitely revisit it.
It's just such a, I mean, first just turn of the century like movie. It's such a like end of the century, like people getting used to the internet and technology kind of movies. Like historically, I guess is very significant. And then special effects breakthroughs. I mean, its special effects were very, very significant for the time, and honestly, still. I mean, the first one at least still hold up, I think.
Yeah.
And then the whole, I think for all the movies that do like the savior kind of narrative, you know, like the one kind of narrative, The Matrix. And then philosophically, I think The Matrix is so like rich and has sparked so many like it's almost impossible not to reference The Matrix if you're talking about like that kind of philosophy of like, you know, what is reality and just you know, blah blah blah. You know, it's such a cliche. It's become just because of how influential it was.
Yeah, you know what, you're right. I'd put The Matrix on the canon. Yeah, it definitely needs to be canon. Even just upon reflection of my first viewing as a child, I think I'm not as a child, but as a young adult, it definitely needs to be canon because it is also like how you were just saying, like it's reflective of the society's ideas of like, are we real? And it was like the beginning of the horror, or no, the fear of what technology could bring, you know. And that's like before it happened, before the internet really happened. This film is, you know, essentially talking about the internet. It's talking about, you know, living in a digital space, you know, like this is not real, that's real. And I think, it definitely deserves to be on canon for that reason.
Also has some interesting, I just was recently seeing some video essays about like the trans message in it, which is the metaphor kind of, which is really interesting. I would like to rewatch it just to see that.
Yeah, for sure.
Then we talked about Fight Club. Yep. I'm just talking about my 10 out of 10s, the ones that are personal 10 out of 10s, and I put in the canon. Silence of the Lambs. What have you seen it, or what do you think about it?
I've seen scenes. I haven't seen the whole film.
Oh my god. Okay, well, just the serial killer movie, I would say, like, but in a weird way that's really restrained and focused on the performances of the actors and focused on like what you don't see. Like it just hints at things, you know, and you see glimpses of things, but like the weird like realism of it makes it way scarier than like a lot of other movies. Like I don't know, it's really committed to being as realistic as possible. Just a great, and the performances obviously just excellent all around. Goodfellas is another one. I don't know, I don't think you're gonna let that in the canon, but just such I think it's Martin Scorsese's masterpiece. I think it's so like wide ranging. I love how it travels through American history, through the decades, and how each decade has like a different feeling to it and like flavor to it, but that has to do with the main characters, where they are in life. But I just love that for some reason, because I think of decades as like different. Every year has like a slightly different feeling, and every decade has a slightly different like flavor or feeling to it. But I haven't seen that in movies done as well as, and not in like a corny way, as Goodfellas.
Yeah,
it's just like such a fun like gangster movie.
Yeah.
I think that's the main thing. It's the fun gangster movie.
Yeah, I think upon reflection, I think that would have to be canon, because I think that is, just from the gangster films I've seen, it's the definitive one. And I think it is.
Besides The Godfather, obviously, but it's like The Godfather's so serious and dour. Like Goodfellas made gangster movies fun again. It's just like with the music, the soundtrack, it's just like, it's fun. And it's so fast. It's one of those movies that's like moves really fast. You never feel bored. Things are always happening. I don't know. It feels complete. It like kind of summarizes this person's life. I love movies like that feel that complete. Let's see. Oh, Possession. This is one like I've told you. It's in my like top 5 that I put on the website, and I've told you about it. But just I would submit it as like art house horror cinema. I guess it's hard to define, but like European art house horror.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those weird movies that like I looked recently and it's not available to stream anywhere. So I'm like, okay, like it's one of those weird, not as popular as it should be movies where I feel like it's just as good as like lots of David Lynch movies, like Eraserhead, lots of like A24 movies that have recently come out that are super popular, that I'm like, oof, if more people knew about this movie, they would like it just as much as like Hereditary or movies like that it's like, it's super intense, like it feels like a fever dream the entire movie, and it like keeps that feeling for the entire movie, and it's such a unique experience that I can't like think of another movie that exactly compares to it, because it's about a relationship, it's about a marriage falling apart, but it's also about war, and it's also about like the title, it's like it's about possession, like he thinks that his wife is possessed or that she's having an affair, but like it's also about like the feeling of possession that you feel in relationships and how creepy that can get, and the paranoia but it takes that idea that's very ordinary and could be in like a bunch of drama movies and like makes it really surreal. I love it so much. But good movie. Star Wars. Yep. I'm like I'm going back in time, but I'm on the fence. Like the first movie, definitely canon. Empire Strikes Back is even better than the first movie, so I would want to put that in canon. But then there's Return of the Jedi, which people are always like split on whether that. I mean, most people will admit that it's not as good as the first two, and it's kind of a weak third end of the trilogy, but it has a lot of iconic things in it that, even though people make fun of the Ewoks, and make fun of like, oh, okay, whatever, the Death Star is back and they blow it up again and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just has so many iconic, like Jabba the Hutt and, Princess Leia. Like, I don't know. There's so many iconic parts of the movie. The final confrontation between Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker and the Emperor.
Yeah.
I almost feel like kind of like Lord of the Rings. Like, I feel like the entire trilogy should just be included, but you haven't seen them, so I think we need to like watch them at some point. For sure.
Even not having watched them, I think they should definitely deserve a slot. Just because I think all modern cinema can stem from that. Like, I think there is no CGI without Star Wars in a way. Like they have influenced so much, and like Skywalker sound, you have light and magic, like all the things that George Lucas did spawned from Star Wars. Like the modern film industry would not exist in a lot of ways. The blockbuster wouldn't exist in a lot of ways without it.
Apocalypse Now, have you seen that?
No.
All right. Well, I mean, I would submit it as, there's a lot of great Vietnam War movies, but I feel like Apocalypse Now is is the best, and the making of the movie is just insane. There's a whole, I mean, the documentary about the movie is almost as widely known as the movie itself. Francis Ford Coppola is insane. Like the way they made the movie is insane. The realism of it, but like how psychedelic, it kind of captures the psychedelic feeling of the end of the 70s. I don't know, a lot of other Vietnam War movies are kind of boring to me, even though they're like really good movies. It's just kind of like too straight. They just play it too straight, like it's just this. But this movie has a mystical feeling to it, that adds to it, makes it feel more universal, that you don't have to know anything about Vietnam at all to watch the movie. I don't know. It's just a great war kind of journey into the jungle, you know, into the unknown, into the Heart of Darkness, which is, it was based on the novel Heart of Darkness. Not about Vietnam at all, which I think is such a cool, like, it's a really cool adaptation just from that perspective, like adapting a book like that has nothing to do with the final product, the way it turned out. Because Heart of Darkness came out in like 1910 or something, and has nothing to do with war or Vietnam War at all. But it's cool. It's an incredible like adaptation and movie. Just the fact that it exists. Eraserhead we talked about. I would definitely submit that as one of the earliest, like really great, like art house cult classics. David Lynch's first great. Star Wars we talked about. Taxi Driver we've talked about.
Yep.
Which I would definitely include. Yeah. The Exorcist. Have you ever seen it?
No, I haven't. Oh,
oh God, such a freaking good. It still holds up. It's incredibly influential, like, but way better than any of its ripoffs. It's just crazy that literally every year still, like, what is it, like 50 years later, there's still a possession movie that comes out like every year. Yeah, you know, that's just a ripoff of The Exorcist. Like, I think that's incredible. Yeah. But the original is so much more dense and like philosophically interesting. Speaking of like movies about doubt and faith, that's an interesting one. The Godfather, I would submit as the ultimate like serious gangster movie. One of the greatest, you know, 70s movies. Marlon Brando, greatest, you know, one of his greatest performances. Al Pacino's introduction to cinema, you know, like just there's so much about that movie to love. So yeah, 10 out of 10. We're going back in time. The next one I have is Vertigo. I feel like is Alfred Hitchcock's masterpiece. Yeah, like one of my favorite. Just talking about great scores. Bernard Herrmann.
Oh, like, yeah, incredible. He did Taxi Driver, right?
Yeah. Okay. Just incredible score that just adds so much emotion to this weird movie that has a plot that has some great like twists and turns in it, and the colors of the movie, the cinematography are really interesting. Just great movie. We should definitely watch that at some point. Yeah. Casablanca. Yeah, I'm back in the 40s now. Just iconic romance that like one of those movies that when you read about the making of it, it shouldn't be as good as it is. Yeah. Like it was a disaster. Like one of those movies that had like, you know, 10 writers and like 3 or 4 directors, and, you know, was constantly being edited and re-edited and changed and stuff. But like still the final product is like, feels like a masterpiece that was done. Everything was done on purpose, you know? It's iconic. It's timeless. 10 out of 10. Gone with the Wind. I would recommend that one. We're back in 1939 now, but as you know, one of the first big full Technicolor movies. It like, as far as like big epics, you know, about, I mean, there's not many like Civil War movies that I would recommend, but this is the one. Yeah. And the colors, the cinematography of this movie are so good. Like just looks so every time I see it, I'm like, oh my God, this is like a beautiful movie. But it's crazy because it was like the very beginning of color movies, you know.
Wow.
And it was so gorgeous. Like they used the colors so well. That I would recommend it for sure. Let's see. Metropolis is my last one. My first, like, earliest 10 out of 10 that I would give. 1927. First great sci-fi movie. German, I think it's called like German Expressionism. Like that style of movie where everything is very, like the angles and the sets. The sets are crazy and look so interesting, like stylized in this movie. But like the movie itself is really interesting. Like, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but it's just, it has no right to be as good as it is for being like 100 years old.
Wow.
And for looking as good as it does. As like corny as the special effects are, they're still like, if you just buy into it, you know, like you would buy into an animated movie.
Yeah.
It's really good. Like the style of it is so good, so interesting. Like the city feels real almost in a way, even though it's just a bunch of little, you know, it's just a bunch of little miniatures and little painted backdrops and stuff. But like, and then the themes are really interesting. Like speaking of class conflict and like parasite and stuff, it's one of the first movies that it's almost like a kind of like a socialist movie.
Yeah.
Just about the workers versus the industrialists, you know, and it's such a pure sci-fi metaphor that was ripped off so many times. Like if you when you see Metropolis, you will recognize it in almost every other, like Blade Runner and Dark City is another one that comes to mind, came out in the 90s. But like all these like futuristic, like, you know, big metropolis, you know, movies about like the people that live down below and the people, you know, the rich people that live up above, you know, and that kind of like cliche, like comes from Metropolis. So yeah, that's such a good movie.
Now,
and they restored it recently. There's a really good version of it that I think it was like a few years, 10 years ago or so, that they found like a, you know, new cut of it.
Wow.
And it's much, they restored it, much better quality. I think they did a new soundtrack for it. And it's like, so it's really good. That's the version you should see, is like the newest restored version of it.
Now, is that a silent film or is it?
Yeah,
okay.
It's silent.
Okay.
It is silent with you know, the dialogue cards, but
wow,
it's really, really good.
See, I've never seen a film with the silent dialogue cards.
Oh boy, dude. Yeah, I mean, the other ones on the cabinet of Dr. Caligari is another one that's really good silent film that I would put in canon. The Passion of Joan of Arc.
Oh yeah,
it's really good, incredible, like minimalist cinematography that's really good. Yeah, those are the three silent ones, even though I feel like there's more that I have as question marks, but that's my weakness right now, is that I, you know, like I told you, as the decades go on, I have more and more and more as you get to modern times, obviously. But I feel like there's a lot more that I could put on the list, you know, that if we ever decide to take a deep dive into silent, that era, then we could definitely, like M is another one I want to mention, which is like this really weird, like about a child serial killer.
Whoa.
is the main character, and possibly rapist. I don't know. It's implied, you know, it's all implied.
Wow.
But same director as Metropolis, Fritz Lang, and like great cinematography, like great, incredible like premise. And it was one of the earliest like serial killer movies. Maybe it was the first serial killer movie where it's like a crime kind of, you see from the cop's perspective, you see from the victim's perspective, which is really the scary scenes are those where you're seeing children, you know, getting abducted or, you know, wandering away and then disappearing. Really well done, like, you know, without using any explicit violence or anything, just implying everything.
Wow.
Really creepy early movie, but yeah.
That's interesting.
Those are my 10 out of 10s that I went through. Didn't you have one more that you were going to mention? Or am I making things up?
No, it was just My Life as a Zucchini, I think was the last one that I had said one more.
All right.
Damn it. I did think of another one while you were talking, and I forgot it.
Well, I mean, we could put our whole list.
Yeah.
I was thinking we could put, I mean, we could somehow format it or figure out, like, if we put both of our lists as like, these are submissions, and then we'll put the ones that are definitely in.
Yeah.
Those will be highlighted.
Yeah.
And then from there, we'll just figure it out and, like, figure out how to build it up or make the tracks that we're talking about. And
Yeah.
it'll be like a project that we're constantly working on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm excited to revisit and to visit for the first time all the ones you mentioned, because, like, again, I think me and probably the majority of newer cinephiles, more modern cinephiles, like, we haven't explored a lot of those films, like, especially like the silent films, a lot of the older foreign films, a lot of which you mentioned, like, oh man, like, all those sound just so brilliant to me.
There's so much to explore. Damn, you know what? I didn't even mention, like, any Stanley Kubrick.
Oh my god, yeah.
Like, there's so much that we haven't even touched on. That or the Coen brothers, like, there's so many that I had trouble, like, picking the ones that I put in canon, but I did.
Kurosawa. I mean, you have Ozu. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot.
It is a lot.
Wow.
Or noir, like certain genres, like noir, that I really like. I have a lot of noir in my list in canon that I feel like we could go on a whole tangent on that at some point, like Double Indemnity, The Big Sleep, The Maltese Falcon.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many good noirs.
Yeah.
I would put in canon.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to bring up to you off the podcast, but I'll just bring it up now because I just thought about it. But one thing I wanted to bring up is, like, it would be cool if, like, maybe next year, maybe during each month, we have, like, a topic, like a genre topic where we purposely go out to explore, whether they're on your canon list or films that are in that genre that you love. Like, I was thinking February is, like, normally a month of love, with Valentine's Day and all that kind of stuff. And then also, well, just for the love genre, it'd be like, all right, let's seek out all the highest rated, most renowned romantic films and then watch them, whether we've seen them or not. Like, let's hit the highlights. And then I was thinking, like, I think I might get this wrong. I think it's June, or maybe it's July. I think it's June is Pride Month, right?
I don't ask me.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, I think one of the summer months is Pride Month, but I was like, all right, that'd be the month, we hit, all the LGBTQ films.
Ooh, yeah. Let Blue is the warmest color. Call Me by Your Name.
Yeah, like all those I haven't seen. So, like, I think even if we just made up our own, like for January, we can make it noir month, and, like, we could just have, like, a theme. And we pick the 4 highest rated films, whether we've seen them or not, and then just plow through them. And then, that'll maybe let us revisit films, visit new ones, and, and then other people could join us in the themes. Because I know, like, November is known as, like, Noir November. So like, next November, we could be like, all right, we're going to seek out the 4 best noir films. And each weekend, that's going to be the film we watch, join along with us, and let's see if they join the canon and stuff like that. So I don't know. That
sounds like a plan.
That'd be a fun, thing to do.
Definitely.
All right, man.
I am up for it.
Well, was there any other ones you wanted to mention on your list? That didn't sound like 100 films.
No. I was just given the 10 out of 10s because giving all of talking about all of them would be impossible. We've already gone. How long have we gone? 2 hours.
Yeah.
So I figure we'll post our lists on the site somehow.
Yeah.
And so once we get that up there, we can, or maybe I could say by the time this episode is published, it'll be on the website. It'll be cineverm.com / what should we call it? /canon.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
So cineverm.com/canon. We'll put our list there. We'll put the ones that are in the canon at the top. And over time we'll be gathering them and sorting them and putting them into tracks and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm excited. I think we have a good list so far. I liked a lot of your picks. I liked a lot of my picks. I liked what we conceded on, and
Yes.
I think we have a lot of work to do. So that's exciting.
We do.
Yeah.
Gotta roll up our sleeves and get through this list.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening to this episode of Cineverm. It is a very special thing. I was looking at some statistics earlier, just on the average. Most podcasts only last like 5 episodes. Is like
really?
Yeah, like 80% of podcasts only last like 5 episodes and then they stop.
Oh my god.
So us being at 50, and 25 of those being just totally. Thanks to you, David, and I'm very grateful and like appreciative of you, joining me in this. We both have very hectic lives and busy lives, and we are definitely not making any money off of this.
Nope.
So the gains are very small, but I really do appreciate this because like. I don't know. My whole life always wanted like a film friend, and I feel like you've really been that for me these past 25 episodes, and it's amazing, man. Like I love talking about film. I think I've learned so much from you, and from the films that we've watched. So it's just it's something I will always remember in my life, whether or not this podcast ever blows up or does anything good for us. Like I am super proud of it, and I'm super happy to keep doing it every week, and it's exciting. Like I'm excited to watch all these other films. I'm excited to have this canon list. I think it's going to be the definitive film list of all time.
Hell yeah.
So
AFI, move out of the way.
Yeah.
Coming for you.
So with all that being said, thank you to all the listeners for listening to this episode of Cineverm. We would be grateful and humbled if you could leave us a review with your thoughts or comments. Let us know what you think deserves to be canon. Like maybe there's films we've never heard of. Like we would always love to hear that. You can leave the reviews on Apple Podcasts or Good Pods. And you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or email us those suggestions or comments at cineverm@yahoo.com. And then also be sure to check out our snazzy website, cineverm.com, where we have written reviews. And then we also are obviously going to have this list on there at cineverm.com/canon. So check that out. And then speaking of that, I also have a YouTube channel that I recently started called A Lonely Critic, where I do like solo video reviews of all the newer films, the mainstream stuff. And if you like comics, check out my other podcast, Cineverm, where I review comics with my other friend, Jeffrey Carroll. And then speaking about him, give his podcast a listen, The Back Bedroom. And then if you could share us with your friends or family, as that helps us in our journey to spread the love of cinema. And we will see you next week with another film review.
Yep. See ya.
Cineverm.